Where were we there?
Well, other than a graveyard.
Oh,
I
I
believe
get
a
it.
graveyard was... we were at a honey graveyard.
A honey.
We'd been bringing back the dead.
We were discussing the ethics of bringing back the dead. Because you need to see the episode, as I say, it's on YouTube. But earlier in the episode, Beth Lestrade goes to the chief of police just to get the okay to bring Sherlock Holmes back from the dead.
Funnily enough, she doesn't get that okay.
No, she doesn't get that okay, but she's a renegade. She does it anyway.
A renegade necromancer.
but I just can't get it through my head, like how, there's so many things wrong with bringing someone back from the dead for that.
I think I quite agree with the police.
I'm with them as well. In fact, let's try. Like, imagine, for example, you're the chief of police, and I'm coming to you with something along these lines.
Okay, so sell it to me.
Right, I hope this goes better than the last play out we attempted. But anyway, so right, you're the chief of police, and I'm convinced. So hang on.
Come in.
Sergeant, we've got some big trouble brewing. It turns out that someone's cloned Genghis Khan, and he's in town trying to plunder home base. But it turns out that we've got the corpse of Rocky Balboa stored underneath the police station in a fat honey. And I reckon that would sort him right out. So, can we bring him back to life? If you were the chief of police, what would you say to that?
I'd say, you're not a police officer. How did you get in here? Someone get the white coats.
But I mean, like, what other fictional characters could they have brought back? Like, no, just in case he's needed, for example. But, it's FA Cup final day, and Man United are a man shot after their star strikers broke his legs. But luckily they've got the corpse of George Best stored in a vat of honey underneath Old Trafford, so they just bring him back for it.
Morecambe and Wise. Maybe even some fictional detectives like Jessica Fletcher.
Jack Frost.
Quincy! But he would need his yacht. Otherwise, he'd refuse to take a case.
I know, but the thing is, see, that one thing, they didn't bring Watson back from the dead, well, because he's just buried himself normally. He's not buried himself, but, he's been buried normally. But they got a replacement for Watson in this, if I'm not mistaken, haven't they?
Oh. A replacement...
In the loosest sense of the word.
In a very loose sense of the word, in that they have a robot, or as it's called, I believe it's called a compudroid. Just to make it sound more sciencey.
Yep, and he's assumed the personality
of Watson. He's the Pantene Pro V of robots. Just made up technical names.
It probably contains Regenium somewhere.
That's what they use in the honey.
Cellular Regenium.
Because you're worth it.
I still wouldn't buy it if Cheryl Cole was on the advert. But anyway, the robot, it looks like
Cheryl Cole in the 22nd century. Elementary. I don't know what accent that was.
I think you see with Watson, it looks like a cross between a toaster and see that robot is in Futurama, it's in the soap opera. Is it called All My
Calculon?
Calculon, that's the one. And I think as well as there's a few Futurama-esque themes in the show, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, there's there's flying cars and whatnot to it. I don't know.
Trips to the moon.
Is there trips to the moon?
Apparently, it's according to the Wikipedia article that we've plundered for information about it.
That we've meticulously went through.
We have,
as you can tell.
But the thing is, like, Sherlock, he's actually taken quite well to the future, hasn't he?
He doesn't seem to be that bothered by it, really. It's just
the fact that everyone he knows, he knew is now dead.
He seems to think that it's yet another thing which is completely ridiculous, yet, logical deduction would have it that I'm in the 22nd century and there's hover cars and there's robots walking about.
The thing is, he's taken so well, he can actually really quickly figure out how to work out complex computers.
What I'm surprised by is that...
I mean, my mum's 50, she can't work her phone.
I don't know, maybe it's, a Mac. What I'm surprised by is that, if I remember correctly, in this episode it's established that what instead of prisons, what did the basic Scotland Yard basically use some kind of hypnosis device or some kind of brainwashing device to reform. Surely if we're talking ethical concerns, surely the fact that people are being brainwashed to do what they wouldn't normally do.
When you think about it, have you seen the film Sylvester Stallone's in it?
I've seen lots of films with Sylvester Stallone.
He's Demolition Man. This borrows quite heavily from Demolition Man, to be honest with you. In fact, it borrows so heavily.
If you replace Stallone with Sherlock Holmes and Wesley Snipes.
He was in jail recently, wasn't he?
He was in jail.
Maybe
he was in jail for some kind of fraud or some kind of
Maybe if they used the
which I believe is connected. He's had some rumoured connections to my favourite cult, the Nawabins.
Alright. Those fellas.
Yeah. I'm not going into this now. The Nawabins are a very odd cult. UFO cult who believe they were descended. They believe several different origin stories, that they were descended from aliens or that they were like an ancient tribe of Egyptians, or they believe that dinosaurs were descended from the grey aliens.
It's quite interesting how we came from Sherlock Holmes into discussing Wesley Snipes' UFO cult. That's an odd turn of events.
I was going to say, it's basically it pretty much is the same. It's just that Wesley Snipes if Wesley Snipes were Moriarty and Stallone were Sherlock Holmes. In fact, I would pay to see that film.
Sherlock Holmes playing Stallone.
Oh no, he doesn't say that, does he?
Anyway, let's.
Watson.
Another thing that's quite an interesting point in this is he takes to controlling hover cars. He's not very good at it, and Lestrade kind of.
I believe he drives one, but he seems to know. There's a little sequence in it. I don't know if there's much point in playing it, to be honest, because it's just a few seconds, but he knows where the key is to put the hovercraft off autopilot. Whereas Lestrade, who was born in the 22nd century, is baffled.
You think that would at least be something in the driving theory test of the 22nd century. But the worst thing is when he starts driving it. You drive a hovercar, you fly it, starts piloting,
hover
it, starts hovering this hovercar. She starts taking the piss out of him because he's a bad driver. I mean, in fairness, he's not done too badly.
Yeah, it's his first time, right? Don't be too harsh on him.
I know, but considering he came from an era when the only method of transport meant that all of Britain's streets smelled like horse shit.
This still smells like horse shit, but in a very different sense.
I hope you hear that, Sandy Ross. Can we play just another clip from the show? Because I'm sure we've got one or two more interesting. How can we put it? Snippets. Right, let's give this one a wee go. Right, so just explain to the people what's happening in this clip just now, Dario.
Okay, in this clip, non-Moriarty, that is the cloned Moriarty, is attacking the police mainframe so that I don't know, they can't drive their cars or something, or some kind of their hovercraft has to be taken off autopilot, which I'm sure takes more than it takes a couple of seconds, and that's more than the police can afford in this day and age. In this day and age, being the 22nd century. So, in this clip, Moriarty's attacking the mainframe and Sherlock Holmes is about to stop him. But he does something very weird in the process, which...
somewhat weird and impressive.
Yeah, and we'll discuss it. We'll just play it in the background and just discuss it as it comes along.
So the moment he's getting in a door...
Cease and desist, whoever you are!
Whoever you are!
Moriarty, right, and he's got some kind of flying gun thing. And it takes a shot.
Lestrade gets shot but doesn't die. She gets shoved a bit. It's a shove laser. Here's the interesting bit. He uses his trench coat to deflect the lasers.
Yeah, Sherlock Holmes just gets shot with the laser and used his trench coat to deflect it.
He's a matador of lasers,
so,
if you will.
So there's no in the future there's no point spending a lot of money in bulletproof vests. All you need is 18th century, 18th century, 19th century,
Let's say 19th century.
19th century trench coat,
Or even 20th.
or 20th. In fact, well, actually, it might not be.
It could be any kind of trench coat.
Because remember, at the start of it, correct me if I'm wrong,
Was he
it
naked?
was naked, and the honey, because the honey would stay.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know much about the technique of preserving trench coats and honey. I mean, I thought it was stretching it a bit to have a whole person revive from honey. I don't know if maybe
But trench coat's not
a trench
enough of your
coat.
nonsense.
But yes, Sherlock Holmes seems to be defeating 22nd century technology with a mere trench coat, which is quite impressive, you'd have to admit. Certainly more impressive than a tweed jacket, which fails to keep the rain out. So, I don't know if there's much to say. We've pretty much covered the entire first episode.
Well, we've not actually really covered much of it at all. We've not
well-
explained the plot of it, but we're not going to bother because it's not very good.
Well, I was about to say we've pretty much covered the entire episode, and there isn't much to cover in the episode. They get brought back to life. Sherlock Holmes kind of takes a hovercraft off autopilot, and then he deflects a laser with his train. I think that's pretty much the main.
That's pretty much it.
Substance
You
of the story.
can't ask for more than that, can you?
Well, technically you could, but Sandy Ross wouldn't listen.
No, not Sandy Ross. He's busy skiing in Aspen, coming up with terrible idea for cartoons.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll leave it at that. What have we got next week? Are we going to do the room next week? Should we try the room?
I think the room is a good candidate for next week. So if you've got anything to add, or any more suggestions for things you would like reviewed, you can email them to nothinginparticularpodcast@gmail.com. Even if you're a fan of Sherlock, if in the unlikely event you are a fan of Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century,
Just point out the 22nd century bit there. We're not wanting genuine Sherlock Holmes fans calling in. Sorry, emailing in rather.
Well, we don't want them calling in.
pissed off.
I don't want them calling in either, because this is my I don't want them phoning on my house phone to start talking about the great wrong that has been done to Sherlock Holmes the character, because I'll certainly be hanging up as soon as possible, and it won't be featured in this podcast at all.
And don't expect replies from the emails. If you're lucky, we'll read them out. In fact, probably so few of you will emails that we'll probably read them all out. But anyway,
but nonetheless, feel free to email us with your suggestions and questions, and yeah, next podcast will be the room. So if you have anything to add about the room,
which trust me, if you watch it, you'll
you
have
will.
something to say.
Then feel free to chip in with that. Okay, so
Right.
that's been Nothing in Particular podcast with me, Dario, and with Gary.
Yep.
So
And we'll see you next week.
yep.
Bye.
Bye.